Are there a lot of bad things happening in the world? Definitely, but my conspiracy theory of choice is that the world is more good than it is bad, and that most people are fundamentally decent. So here's some happy news that's going on in the world. In California, they're using goats to eat whole sections of brush that will make buffers between sections that can really slow down a fire or even block it entirely from spreading, because goats can really get between all the cracks and in terrain that would be hard for machinery to reach. And the goats also don't have to tear up the landscape like heavy equipment might. It also protects people, because before, people are having to go out into these dangerous terrains to do this work. But for goats, it ain't no thing. You know, they're just hopping around, no big deal, and getting a good meal out of it on top of that. And then also these goats become a public event where people will show up with their families just to watch the goats. And the goats also keep the soil fertile, if you know what I mean. Reduce, reuse, recycle, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. Also in North Carolina, a 911 call came in and that a young boy was wandering on the highway, and so an officer came out, found the kid, made sure he was safe, but this kid was autistic and nonverbal, and so he can't talk, and I'm guessing he didn't have a photo ID on him, so they were thinking, how do we get this kid home? We don't know who he is, where he came from. So normally when a dog is tracking, they're trying to find where a person is, but in this situation they have the person, they need to find where he came from. So they did reverse tracking, where they got the dog to trace where the kid had been walking, and eventually this dog followed him back to his neighborhood, and like some neighbors saw, and he got reunited with his family. So that's pretty cool, pretty smart, and now I think that's a standard procedure that they're teaching all the cops. Next up, a kid who was being bullied for being low income and wearing the same thing to school every day. But then two of the kids who had actually been making fun of him not only apologized, but gathered together a bunch of new clothes for him.
Told him, I said, you know, when we was in the same third period, he was like, yeah, I said, I apologize for laughing at you, and I want to give something to you to make it up.
This is legit my favorite kind of story, because it's someone realizing that what they're doing isn't right, and not only swallowing their pride and apologizing for it, but taking tangible steps to make amends and just make reconciliation and be practical in their solutions. And I think it's so fitting that this happened at the Martin Luther King Jr. Academy, because this is such the kind of like loving, forgiving, love your enemies type things that MLK was all about. Also this week, the Senate passed the Children's Safety Act, which is a major piece of legislation that will force social media companies to have stricter rules about, you know, children. And this new law will prevent unknown adults from communicating with kids. Good idea. There's a bunch of creepers trying to get at kids, and it'll restrict the ability to share minors' geolocation data. I read that in an article. I don't know what it means, but it sounds good, like that you can't find kids, you know. Platforms will also have to default kids' accounts to the strictest privacy setting, which in my mind, it's like, why was that not a thing before? And it will also ban targeting advertising to kids. And so this is like the first major legislation I think that has passed since, I think it said 2004, which is, you know, before YouTube. And so it's wild that it's taken this long, but I'm glad that like they're finally taking these kinds of steps. And this law passed 91-3. It's a big majority. And I think the only 3 dissents came because people were worried about free speech. And I get it. Like, I'm only not a free speech absolutist because of the one exception of like, I think laws should be different for kids, you know, just like tobacco or whatever, tattoos. Kids need protection. If you're an adult, you can say whatever you want, but kids need different rights and protections. And I thought I'd just finish up with some personal happy news. I do photo video work, and I'm getting a full-time editor in the near future. There's some candidates around, but that's going to increase my time to spend on videos like this, or just, you know, ideas, or upping my quality. So I'm really excited to take on new kinds of projects and have more time for that. So that's been happy news number 2, and hope to see you for number 3.